And so freedom, I wanted to create some programs, right? I know there's a lot of program creators in here, a lot of people that are doing programs right now. And that's what I wanted to do. And my mentor said, he said, no, don't create programs. He said, facilitate a process, right? Facilitate a process. And it was hard for me to wrap my head around it because I want to do this kind of program, I want to do this in the community. But he said, facilitate a process. And as I was trying to understand it, he told me a story. And I'm going to share this story with you. And the story is about an individual, like many of the individuals in here, somebody that was concerned with their family, concerned with their community, right? And every morning, what they would do was drop down on their knees and ask their higher power, who they call God, to, how can I best serve you? They would ask. And then one morning, they actually heard a voice. And I don't know if the voice was inside their head or outside their head, but they heard a voice. And the voice said, "Do you want to serve me?" And he said, "Yes." He says, "Okay, stand up." He said, "Look out that window. See that boulder in front of your house?" And he looked out, he saw this gigantic, this big boulder been on front of his house for years, right? He said, "I want you to go out there and push that boulder." And he said, "You want me to push the boulder?" He said, "You want to serve me, right?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Well, go out there and push that boulder." He said, "Okay." So he went out there and started pushing on this big rock, right? And every day he would go out and push on the rock, right? And days went by, pushing on the rock. Weeks go by, pushing on the rock. Months go by, pushing on the rock. Of course, his friends, family, neighbors, walking by, "What you doing?" "I'm pushing the rock." "Why are you pushing the rock?" "God told me to do it." "Okay, sure." So finally, after a year of pushing on this rock, he wakes up one morning, he drops down on his knees as he normally does, and he says, feeling very kind of depressed, kind of dejected, because he's thinking after a year of pushing on this rock, I haven't moved this rock but 1 inch, not 1 inch. Then you heard that voice again. The voice said, "Stand up. Now, look in the mirror." Now, when he started off on this year ago, he was a puny kind of little guy. He was kind of a little sickly. But now when he stood up and he looked in the mirror, he said, "Look at your arms." And there's arms that used to be little skinny arms. Now he had bulging muscles. He said, "Look at your shoulders." Now he's looking at his shoulders was back. And he was looking, he says, "Well, I'm kind of buff." He looked at his legs were stronger. Through this process of pushing this rock, he had become stronger and more healthier. He became more valuable to his family because he was healthy, because he was stronger. He was more valuable to his community. And then I understood, when I heard this story, I understood what this was all about, right? Because it's the work. It's the work. It's not. It's like somebody said that success is a journey, not a destination. The process of creating better communities is about going to meetings. It's about identifying resources. It's about sharing. It's about relationship building. It's about all those things. But it's a process. It's a process that we all share in. Okay? And there's a lot of rock pushers in here. I see a lot of people. I mean, Stan's a rock pusher. You know, here's one of my favorite rock pushers right here. Bob Shipman, right? We got a lot of rock pushers in the back here. I see Darlene and everybody back here, my South Philly epic people. Oh. Back there, and all the epic people, and all the people that are involved in doing this work, and we're doing it in so many different ways and everything. So that's why it's great that we're all here sharing this thing. We all want to connect. You know, now I'm going to talk about 3 things today, and I'm going to be brief, no matter how long it takes. The first thing I want to talk about is how it takes a network to raise a village. You know, you heard about that, how it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a network to raise a village. And the village I'm talking about is Philadelphia, right? And I'm going to talk to you about how to utilize and understand how urban networking as a tool for survival. And lastly, and most importantly today, how we can use our networking combined with information advocacy to create a better quality life in our communities. But first, the truth. The truth is the state of the economy, the lack of cohesion, the lack of compassion by our national leadership has left the common man and woman to fend for themselves. The high unemployment and unstable economic conditions is turning American citizens against each other. Those individuals who have made it are forgetting what it took and who supported them. There's now a battle against unions and collective bargaining and other initiatives that have traditionally looked out for the working class citizen. We're supposed to be living in a democracy where the government, according to Abraham Lincoln, is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Yet, programs that our grandparents fought for and our ancestors died for are slowly being eliminated. An elitist ruling class is seizing power. Just recently, in Washington, D.C., there was a ceremony held unveiling a monument honoring the human rights activist, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and his immortal speech in 1963. In his speech, Dr. King said, "When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men will be guaranteed inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now it's obvious today that America has defaulted on the promissory note, insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, which has come back marked insufficient funds. Well, it's obvious today that that bad check was not just for black people, but for all working class people here in America. They are now telling us there's insufficient funds for our children's education. There are insufficient funds to take care of our grandparents. There's insufficient funds to feed our fellow Americans. There are insufficient funds to support our people living in their own homes. There's insufficient funds to ensure everyone can see a doctor and live a healthy, productive life. Yet, there's money to build luxury cars, hotels, buildings, yet no money for people. There's plenty of money to support the killing of a foreign enemy, yet no money to help poor people at home. Our democracy is supposed to be about the principles of social equality and respect for the individual within a community. Funding to educational opportunities for our children is being replaced by increased opportunities for incarceration, illustrated by reductions in education spending and increased funding for prisons. In Philadelphia, 1 in 4 people live in poverty. Under our ailing educational system, only 50% of Latino and African American males graduate. The prognosis for them is prison, drugs, or death in the street. Social programs are being slashed and destroyed. Violent crime is rising. Over 120 murders since the beginning of the year. Last year we had over 300. Norman Cousins said, in a democracy, the individual enjoys not only the ultimate power, but carries the ultimate responsibility. It appears that the wealthiest among us has forgotten that. Now more than ever, individuals need to be forming and organizing supportive networks that fight, support, and encourage, and motivate individuals to work together in the interests of each other. This is where the concept of urban networking and information advocacy are essential to our survival and our progression as Americans under the Constitution. Now, that's the truth. The truth is, in order to raise this village called Philadelphia, we need to form networks. Not a network, but networks. Networks that intersect. Networks that connect people. Networks that bring change to the disenfranchised, that change the disenfranchised into the empowered. Networks that help people from getting from welfare to fair share. Networks that help our children get into Penn State, not to State Penn. Networks that give our children dreams about entering Yale and not nightmares about going to jail. Networks solve problems. Networks that solve problems. Networks that support people. Networks that communicate, connect, and collaborate. That's why I'm going to stand. Told me about the concept of information advocacy and asked me to get involved. I said yes. Now, I met Stan at one of my urban networking workshops. Okay, let me just explain to you what urban networking is. Urban networking is the aggressive establishment of mutually beneficial relationships, focusing on the exchange of ideas, products, services, and resources, both physical and physical. Right? Now, a lot of people got misconceptions of what networking is. You know, networking is thinks people is about trying to find a job or who you know. And there is aspects of it about knowing, but it's more about who knows you. But it starts first with you knowing yourself. Right? Networking is about you bringing resources to the table, what you bring to the table. Networking it starts with you knowing what your assets are so you can share them with others. Now, networking, in urban networking, we talk about this concept of meeting people, of taking acquaintances. Many of you pass each other, they pass each other in the street, you see each other, right? You walk by each other, maybe you nod your heads at each other and don't acknowledge each other. But networking is about taking acquaintances and turning them into allies, taking your associates and turning them into advocates. Networking is about this whole process, this whole continuum of people coming together and building relationships with each other, so that together we have positive and productive outcomes. And the more I spoke with Stan about what he wanted to accomplish about his dream, the more I see how it aligns with the work that I'm doing in the community, the work that we're doing in the community, the work that how we're going about changing things, and about looking at it in a whole new direction. I mean, when they asked me to get involved, how could I say no? Information advocacy is a means of bridging into life. Information advocates are special kind of people. They listen. Most of them spend their time, well, most of us spend our time talking, they're listening. Because they have to listen. Because they got to write it down, right? Right? They got to assess. And then they got to help them find those resources. So they can help people meet their challenges. They need to listen. And the more I spoke with Stan, the more I knew we were talking about trailblazing. I mean, this is Star Trek stuff, right? Info advocacy is going to take us where no man or woman has gone before. The new frontier. That's what I'm talking about. Now, sure, there's going to be obstacles, and there's going to be setbacks. But isn't that the stuff that pioneers are made of? Stan has created a vision. A vision no different from what the early explorers who were seeking a new world, a better world, and all trailblazers had to recruit. A few good people. A few good people like yourselves. A few good people with heart. A few people with compassion. A few people with determination. Now, turn to your neighbor and ask, do you have heart? Ask them. Do you have compassion? Do you have determination? Are you with me? Yeah. And I'm going to leave you with one last story. And let's go talk about that individual again. Right? Let's talk about an individual who spent their whole life, dedicated their life. This individual was an architect, a carpenter. Right? And he built magnificent structures that people admired. Right? And he would put his heart and soul into it. He would use the best quality materials. Right? And he would just dedicate himself to creating these things, and he was well known and respected for their work. And he did this work for over 20 years. And then it came to a point in his life where he decided, I'm going to retire. I'm tired of it. He didn't have a house of his own. He said, I'm going to relax. I'm going to take some time. I did all this. And he went to retire. And of course, a friend showed up at his house and asked him, before you retire, I'd like you to do one thing. Could you build just one more house? Now, he didn't want to do it. He was tired. But because it was his friend, he decided, I'll do it. But to be honest with you, his heart wasn't in it. So he didn't use the best materials that he could, right? He didn't put his heart into it. He didn't spend that extra time. He didn't give that love to the product that he usually gave. So when the product came out and he finished the house, it was an alright house. It wasn't the magnificent structures that he was used to producing, but it was alright. So he goes to his friend with the keys. He hands him the keys and goes to walk away. And his friend says, wait. And he turns, he says, his friend takes the keys and hands them back to him. He says, here, this is your house. Imagine the look on his face. Can you imagine the look on his face? Do you know what he was thinking? He was thinking, wow, if I knew it was my house, I would have used better material. Wow, if I would have spent more time. Wow, if I knew it was my house, I would have gave it more love. I would have got more involved with it. I would have made it better. I would have made it the best thing, the best house, the best demonstration of what my abilities are. And I submit to you that we're talking about building today, that this info advocacy thing is a house. And you have been doing work. You have been doing in your different areas, been doing work. But now we got another mission, to build something here, to take it to another level. One thing that I like about Stan is though Stan has a vision, he's willing to share his vision. He's willing to help other people, to help in the structure, right? To help have input into it. I've got thousands of emails from Stan and people who all have compassion and caring about what this is going to look like. Stan has brought it to this point, and now we're here today. So we're looking at this info advocacy thing as something that we all can be a part of, that we all can build. And so that when it actually comes to fruition, that we all can say, we're part of this. This is something that we were part of. This is something that we contributed to this. We did give our love to this. So I submit to you today is that although we're here and it's Friday before the holiday, that this is not just a moment, that this is a movement. Thank you.